I see people beat themselves up over perfection. If they saw this happen in the organization, they'd be like, this is shameful, this is horrible, this is the worst thing in the world, and they would prioritize all their time around it. And I'm not actually saying Alex needs to do anything different. I'm saying quality control is a tension to manage. It is absolutely a tension to manage. And I'm sure they're doing this intentionally, living in that tension, not optimizing one or the other. Like this decision now, I don't think they should overcorrect and go that way, because they're probably like, think about me as an example. They already got the sale. For anyone trying to grow a business, I think one of the most critical skills you can develop is the ability to discern when is there a problem to fix. It's actually it's constant reprioritization. It is the skill of reprioritization, where you are prioritizing problems that actually need to be able to fix, and issues or tensions that are just meant to be managed. And I'm going to call this one kind of like a work in progress, real story of our behind the scenes of Alex Hormozi's funnel, his current funnel. It's super interesting because as an entrepreneur, if you're unfamiliar with Alex, really fun journey. And there's some unique aspects of it where he's been able to sacrifice a lot to make those things happen. I think there's very low hesitation of effort and willingness to grow, to pursue skills. He's in a unique situation where him and his wife both are in the business. And so the business is their passion. It is their baby. It is their full focus. They don't have children. They have changed their life, moved and optimized themselves to just win at the game of business. I believe, Todd, you've known him for a long time, but I've only heard the story that from a early entrepreneurship, early in entrepreneurship for him, he wanted to be a billionaire. Had you ever heard him articulate that?
As long as I've known him, Alex has talked about that and basically said, this is actually something I think plays into this topic. Alex is one of the first people that told me, we were just chatting and he was like, hey, it takes the same amount of energy to build $1 billion company as $1 million company. It just comes down to how you deploy that energy and how you manage, which is really what you're kind of going to start talking about, is what you choose to put focus on, how long you stay focused on it, how long you let things creep in and impact you,
Yeah, it's very true. But so all this to say, here's an example of somebody who no one would say there's laziness there. No. We've seen it, he was let me, it just seems like a person who doesn't deal with procrastination, laziness, lack of effort. There's an inherent discipline. I think he's also just really good at hacking his own systems. I think he's I should take vitamins, so I put them on my desk. I think I might have learned that from him too. It was I put the supplements, or put the
habit stacking.
Yeah, habit stacking. So he's just low friction between, I have an idea, I'm going to take action. A lot of things that he's maybe predisposed to. He came up through the fitness space. And a lot of folks that are in this fitness space maybe share these attributes where they're not afraid of hard work, can do it consistently for a long time. And it's not there's a delayed gratification cycle there. So you're there's a lot of things working to his benefit. You complement that with your spouse, your partner is playing the same game as you 24/7. They could design a week with I work 7 days a week, 15 hours a day. And this is what I love. It's what I enjoy. And so guess what? All you taking breaks on weekends, I'm getting ahead of you there. Doesn't have kids. So he's I have no distractions. This is it. And so I've done another video talking through us going through their funnel this year, which I enjoyed. It's a good one to watch. You can look back at that and see what is their stack now in the, what's the perception, what's being promoted out there, and then what is kind of more behind the scenes looks. If you want to see that behind the scenes, that's a good one. This one pairs that story, but with, I think, a real concept that all of us can mature into. And it's that understanding the difference between a problem to solve and attention to manage. A problem to solve and attention to manage. So let me give you an example of this. If you pull your team together and you talk on the sales and marketing side, and then you've got the fulfillment side, delivery and fulfillment side, that is a healthy tension that exists in the business almost always. But each side will present their current pain point as a problem and advocate for a solution. And in both sides, it would be bad for you as the leader to come in and say I'm going to solve this problem, right? So fulfillment says delivery for this customer is very difficult, or, poor expectations were set from sales. And so then your solution is no more sales or overcorrect and kill the sales pipeline. And then 3 months later, you're having to lay off the fulfillment because you're like, it turns out I needed money to be able to pay you. So I solved your problem, but killed the business. Or flip it around. Sales is like, I want to be able to promise the world, right? And there's pumping it. And then it turns into like, too many refunds. And then once again, the whole business goes under. You have to fire everybody. You're like, it turns out we needed to be able to set appropriate expectations or set up fulfillment to succeed or pass those expectations along. And so that's just like a common one in the business between sales and fulfillment. There's a tension. You should not be implementing changes that makes one side completely happy and one side completely unhappy. It is a tension that you should manage. The tension should not go away. It should continue to exist.
Yep.
There are problems in the business, right? Like, Wi-Fi is slow, so everyone is 50% less productive. Well, fix that. Like, get faster internet, and literally everybody gets better. And so this constant reprioritization of problems that you're presented with and a discernment to know, is this a problem I solve, or is this a tension that's managed where there actually is no clean solution? So I'm going to give you a real story, a little behind the scenes, and came straight out of acquisition.com, Alex Hormozi's business, which is one where like they work so hard. And so you might believe there are no problems there. And like we were there in person. It seems like their team was excellent, incredible at executing. Like there's just like no problems to be had, done so many reps. How could they ever have any problems? So I'm going to give you this story. So go back to the other video. There's 3 tiers of commitment to what they're currently doing with workshops. We flowed through all of them. They stack in terms of commitment. So I don't want to price anchor because I'm sure they just keep increasing their price. But basically, you pay for one, and they're like, "Hey, if you go to tier 2, I'll credit you tier 1 onto tier 2." And then they say, "Hey, if you go to tier 3, we'll credit you tier 2 to tier 3." On all those 3 tiers, there's different salespeople, probably sales skills, and price anchor from this way. It's like tier 1, let's call that X. Tier 2, 4X. Tier 3, 20X, maybe 25X. That's about the pricing tier. X, 4X, 25X. And so the person who's selling 25X, that's like their top salesperson. That's the bigger person. The person who's selling the 4X, okay, they're like kind of more skilled. And the people that are selling 1X are probably the entry level folks. This is appropriate. Like think of your sales ladder, your value ladder there. I sell X, I get better at that. I sell 4X, I get better at that. I sell 25X. We went through the full funnel. Now, in person, there was a dynamic here, which was is that I brought a +1. There is no +1. They just pay. If you want to bring a +1 to level 1, it's 2X. You just play X twice. That's it. And I told you they packed out the room as capacity. Going to tier 2, part of their value prop was, hey, even if you're currently 2X, the price is still 4X. So now the value of tier 2 actually seemed to get better. And the thing of tier 3 was that is still 25X. However, you can only bring one person to the top tier, and you can still bring 2 people to the other tiers. What's happening there? It's a value prop. Hopefully this isn't too confusing. I can pick real numbers.
I think we're getting it. It's starting to make sense.
Okay, should I give real numbers?
No, I think it makes sense. There's 3 tiers, and you're using consistent metaphors.
I'll pick fake numbers that play along with the same thing here. So $5 on tier 1, $20 for tier 2, and $115 for tier 3. And so you're coming up through. They said, hey, so what do we pay? We paid $10 to go to tier 1 because we had 2 folks. And they're like, hey, for $20, which is actually only $10 more, just pay us $10 more and you come to tier 2. Like, awesome. This sounds great. And then it was like, pay us, $95 more and you can come to tier 3. Tier 2 has not been talking. Tier 2 didn't talk to tier 3. And so we went through, talked to everybody. Tier 3 had already been paid. Tier 2 came back to us and said, hey, it's actually $20 more to get tier 2. The issue here was just principle. Tier 2 doesn't realize we've already passed by tier 2. And so we say, because we took a lot of clarification and asked, like, hey, just want to understand, is this $10 more to go from tier 1 to tier 2 for us? I said, yes. And they had like signed contracts. Like, this is interesting. This is a crazy deal. We didn't even know tier 3 existed at this point. It's like, do you mind just writing it on the paper contract? Understand? Like, just say like ultimately clear. Like, this is great. I'm stoked on it. I just want to make sure there's no confusion in the future. Let's write it down. Just write it on the paper contract there. So they did. Wrote it down, took a photo, signed it, good to go. So we paid $10. Should have been $10 more. You get tier 2. But hey, I'm a hyperactive buyer. I already passed through tier 3. Tier 2 reaches out. It's like, hey, let's get the date set for all the stuff happening there. And it's going to be, they took like a deposit there. There's a whole process here of collecting funds, all this sort of thing. And basically says it's $30 for you guys to have tier 2. He doesn't know we've already paid way more than $30.
Right.
But I'm like, no, it should be $20. Like this is what was communicated. Like, and so we go back and forth, and I say, like, I was pretty diligent with this process. How'd you write it on the contract? And so the person says, like, oh yeah, I'll check the contract, whatever. I'll go find it next day. And this salesperson just kind of revamps the conversation and is just trying to get us to pay an amount of money that's actually nonsensical. But I have not broken the context here, because I'm just curious to see what's happening here, because this is a wrong expectation situation. I think the person who we talked to there set the wrong expectation, so much so they let me write it on the contract, sign it as the contract, and basically gave us the wrong information.
So is what normally happens is that they don't credit the +1 into tier 2? Is that basically where the break was?
What they normally do is they kind of, it's kind of, let me think. Yeah, they basically,
so they would have only given the credit to the first person.
They don't have a special. So it should have been 30.
Right.
It should have been $5 for one. You paid 10, and then it's like, it's the same deal. Basically, there is no special for if you have 2 people. It's the same deal.
You're just
in total,
okay.
You're paying $40.
Yeah,
is what it should have been. They did not present it that way in person. They made it seem like this is like even more so. If you've got 2 people, this is even a crazier deal because you're getting even more of a discount because you have 2. I don't know if that was the intention or not the intention. They could have been thinking like, what's the chance that both of them are going to show up anyways to the next tier? Like there's just so many factors they could have played with. But here we are. I almost want to pull up the conversation history, because what's interesting is Alex has a podcast where he specifically talks through like, what do you do when you have a mistake? And he goes through and advocates like, this is the process the team lives in. Like, understand, like, hey, if we set the wrong expectation, I'm going to do this. He gives the example, the team maybe sold some folks on the wrong dates or something like that, and they came in for international wrong place. And so he blocked out his evening and went to dinner with them personally for this crew of 5 folks or whatever it is, because because the team, whatever, made that mistake. And he talks through an amazing framework for how you overcome these sort of things, and just the consideration that like long-term, consider your reputation. Like that's what's going to carry.
How you handle a mistake is absolutely can earn more rapport than just when things actually are going well.
No, and he specifically talks about
can destroy it.
Yeah, and you don't want to turn yourself into somebody's project where they then have to go and literally do a YouTube video talking about this thing right here. So
while look that up.
Do you guys want to see if you're on video? Here's a pull up on YouTube. I'm going to show you the conversation history. I'm going to, not the full history. I'm going to show you the last piece of the text, because in our company we have one of our core values, or call it kind of green rule, is the only guaranteed bad response is no response. That's it. And for everybody here, the ironic thing is, I know tier 2 hasn't talked to tier 3. So,
and they haven't, even after all this has started to happen, they didn't like pull up the account and see what all's happened. Like, that's crazy to me.
I know. And so it's like, if you dug a little bit deeper, just imagine if you had a customer and you're trying to get them to pay you $20 more, and then you look and you're like, oh, wait a second, they paid me $95. Like, this is nonsense. They've already elevated past my level here, but I just was super curious on principle, because I'm like, I'm just playing it out. So I'm that kind of person. So here's I'm going to give you the video, or I'm going to bring it over the camera, and you can see here's where I left it off.
Here to take a lack of response as a no. To be clear, I don't want a refund. I want met expectations. And I like that you actually linked to the to the podcast episode.
Yeah, I gave him the training from Alex on like this. Here's the key thing. I'm not trying to throw the organization under the rug, but maybe it's helpful to know, because I'm still like, I'm a paying customer. Like I'm going through it. But it's interesting because you might hear somebody like an Alex or somebody like me say like, oh my gosh, that's great. That's so good. The companies must be just pumping. They make no mistakes. It's just going, it's golden. He's got no other focus than developing his team and building the company organization. And they must wake up every morning and just recite all of the values. And they all know how to exactly create a brilliant, beautiful customer experience for everybody. And I'm like, here I am, where tier 2 salesperson is like, that was the kicker. I don't know if you saw in the thread there. Is I asked him, like, just go check out the contract. Like, I ironically actually did this. Go read it. And I was like, maybe I'm misremembering. If so, like, totally fine. We'll go for it. At that point, I'd be like, surprise, I actually already paid your elevated salesperson here. Like, this non-conversation. But maybe helpful to understand, like, that even them, to the size of all the effort, I would say that's probably an SOP for them. No doubt. Because he now in the conversation is like, I'll go check. He never checked. He never even saw the thing. Because actually he came to the end. The piece above was basically like, hey, this is all we can do. If you want, I can give you a refund. And I'm like, oh, dude, you think, offering to refund a little deposit, you don't know that there's tens of thousands of dollars that some salesperson above you has already collected, and something in your system doesn't, apparently, which is fine. I've seen this in high growth, high sales organizations. Sometimes they have a little bit less, they have less friction in the sales process. They'll collect it any which way. ACH deposit, like, they'll just make it happen however they make it happen. They're like, pay link, done, go and do it. And so, that's fair. I guess it's optimized to maximize sales. But we all know, it'd be great if every person on our team ran the playbook. And I'm sure in their playbook, it's like, if you tell the customer you'll go find the contracts, go flip and find the contract. But he's looking at me and thought, like, oh, this is somebody nitpicking a little bit of money. We got so much demand, I'm just going to move it out. And it's interesting. So I have not kind of said, like, by the by, here's the receipt. We already, like, somebody else already got the commission on this thing. Yeah. The person above you. But I don't know if you saw the date on that. It's been weeks.
That's fascinating. It's fascinating that they just decided to ignore it.
No response.
You know what I think, and I think this is a really good point, Matt, that you're saying even a company that is crushing it, that from the outside people see us having every buttoned and everything dialed in.
Yep.
There's still gaps, and that's normal, right? That is why managers and management exists, is because we're always trying to fix. And I think you've said a couple of things in this that I really like. The constant reprioritization. One, I also think some entrepreneurs get stuck in feeling like their job is triage. So they almost get, like, hooked on just going around fixing things. Some that don't need to be fixed, they just need to be managed. Yep. And then the other takeaway I got from this was, if you're building a company like what Alex has done with acquisition.com, you need to build the system to work for a hyperactive buyer, and then everything else trickles down from that. Because the system should say, I have identified you as a hyperactive buyer. Should have said, this guy is he's skipping over, and everyone else should have been notified. But they're probably used to people that have a little more friction. And so I always think it's good to prepare for the hyperactive buyer first.
Here's what I'd guess. I would guess this person will probably not be with the organization in the next 3 months, because
they may not already if they haven't replied.
Maybe not. Maybe they just stopped replying because they're like, they're already gone. And hopefully, this is what I take away, is I see people like beat themselves up over perfection.
Yes.
If they saw this happen in the organization, they'd be like, this is shameful. This is horrible. This is the worst thing in the world. And they would prioritize all their time around it. And I'm not actually saying Alex needs to do anything different. I'm saying, let's say quality control is a tension to manage. It is absolutely a tension to manage, because think about, for the business, if you somehow only had the most qualified person that was ever there who never made mistakes, they would demand such a rate that the business ultimately would probably lose its profits to ensure 100% execution all of the time. And so the reality is, for them scaling and growing, they have a sales team, they have a structure in place, they probably have management in there where there is some sort of evaluation, there's some sort of feedback loop. I actually, Alex has said they intentionally pay for their sales team to have an iPhone so that they can blue message. So I've no doubt this is a work phone that they've got there. So it's like a blue message iPhone. Pros and cons of that: high deliverability, it goes through, it's a pattern interrupt. Con is there's no oversight. So if this person decides to ghost this lead, they have actually no way to know who was ghosted. And I'd say that is a tension to manage. Yep. Do you want to optimize for highest deliverability and highest sale, or do you want to optimize for highest accountability and oversight. And I think I'm sure they're doing this intentionally, living in that tension, not optimizing one or the other. Like this decision now, I don't think they should overcorrect and go that way, because they're probably like think about me as an example. They already got the sale.
Right.
So ironically,
this isn't even a real problem.
It's not even a real problem. It is a fictitious problem. It's just interesting. And that's why I said in the text there, I was like, I'm curious to see where the rubber meets. I wanted to see, is the playbook going to be played out? I mean, I don't even know. I don't know. I have no expectations. And I'm now just seeing like, hey, does it get recovered in 3 months? Like, does anybody ever notice? And it's not bad. It's like, in my sense, it's like I'm funnel hacking fulfillment, but to the folks who are out there growing, this is often our curse. Is we're good at marketing. And so what happens is, like, being good at marketing and sales is sometimes other aspects of fulfillment get sloppy, and you can beat yourself up and say like, gosh darn it, I need to be better. I need to be better. And you look at someone else who's got multi-$100 million whatever company, probably like cash collected is in the hundreds of millions of dollars. Problems still exist. These are tensions to manage. They're not problems to solve. And I think that's super helpful. And maybe this is a little bit entertaining for folks if you want to see a little bit behind the scenes of the Hormozi fulfillment. But yeah, I've a little bit laughing the whole way, because I'm like, man, you don't even understand. I could be like, on principle, I'm so offended, and I need you to refund me $80, and you thought you were going to refund me $2. And,
So in contrast, how has the communication and, quality been at the higher tier? Similar?
This is interesting. It is a little like they're going after not needy folks. And so, so we're not in the needy space. Not asking much, like dates confirmed, but like we're talking, it's March is when we're actually receiving goods paid for. Part of that was on us. I'm having a kid. And so I was like, I'm not allowed to travel. So I need to plan this very far out. And so of dates you could choose, those were the furthest out possible dates you could have chosen. Like we could have been like going in October, but there was no way I could. So guessing folks closer are having a great experience. In person, it's a great experience, and it's, you got to figure tiers of structure and how they're doing it. Like like I said, I understand this person's not top tier on the team. When you show up in person, you're only getting the top tier folks. But it's also because you're going through the funnel. So they're making sure every tier, it's, maximizing its effectiveness.
The one thing I'd add to this, because I really think this is an important point to drill home, is that there's a lot of entrepreneurs that when one of these mistakes shows up, their ego gets attacked. And they're like, you've embarrassed me, you've embarrassed my company, like to a point where they overcompensate. And I think it's a healthy thing to just accept. Like you're saying, this is something to be managed, meaning it will happen and you should be okay with it. And how are you going to handle it when it does? Not don't spiral emotionally, don't overcorrect, right? Correct appropriately. And I think that's an important part of maturity in an entrepreneur.